one of our LAMSIG webinars, and we're very happy to have Josh Round, who's going to be talking about revitalizing coasting teachers. So if you've got any of those teachers who are going around in a small sailing boat, then you know what to do. So I'll leave you in Josh's capable hands. If you have any questions or any thoughts or anything you want to make a note of as Josh goes along, please note it down in the chat window, and either Josh will respond to it immediately, or I'll make sure that it gets raised at the end so that all of your questions are taken into consideration. And without further ado, I'll hand you over to Josh.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Andy, and hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar. Slightly strange situation. I've never done a webinar before, but it seems I think I know everyone who's come to join me, so it's really nice to see you all. Hello, but I guess for the potential future viewers who might want to come and watch this recording, let me give you a quick introduction to me. I'm a director of studies at a school in central London called St Giles International. I've been a DOS for around 10 years. Before that, a teacher trainer and a teacher before that. I have worked mostly, in fact, solely in the UK as in ELT, and primarily in private language schools, teaching young adults predominantly, although it's 16 plus, and it's all ages, in fact. Of course, there may be some specifics about my ideas and my strategies that I'm going to be talking through, which perhaps in other contexts, some other different local strategies might be better suited. But of course, if anyone else joins and comes from different contexts, it'd be interesting to see what suggestions come through. The other thing to say is that I'm involved in a couple of associations. Firstly, here in London, we have a DOS association, which is called Londosa, and we have monthly meetings. We discuss best practice, and I'm the chair of that group. And also, I've been involved in the LAMSIG, IATF or LAMSIG committee for a couple of years now, a year and a half. And I think it's a great home. It's a community of practice for professional development for academic managers around the world. So that's a quick introduction to me. How am I doing? Just a quick check on the mic. Can everyone hear me? Do you want to type in a quick yes? Yes, perfect, lovely. Thanks, Savannah. Oh, Elena Mintz, welcome. Thank you. And Kat says fine. Great. So let's keep going. So why coasting teachers? Well, I mentioned Londosa, and I think we have a range of topics which come up from time to time, and this is certainly one of those topics which tends to come up. You know, someone will come along and politely ask everyone, so how do we kind of deal with these coasting teachers? How can we rejuvenate them? And I guess the subtext there is, you know, what do we do about these teachers who refuse to develop, that kind of thing. In fact, I seem to remember someone asking if we could discuss the question, how do you deal with the dinosaurs in the staff room? Something along those lines. So it's one of those topics which I think we all have to face from time to time as academic managers in a language teaching organization. So let's start with a quick question. What does everyone understand? What's your perception, or how would you define, if you like, how would you define coasting? If everyone could write a short suggestion in the chat box. Good. Okay, thanks, Angela. So yeah, staff members or teachers not questioning their practice. Doing okay, but not brilliant. Bit frozen. Yeah, that's quite an interesting word, Silvana. Thanks. Comfortable. Yes. Okay. Well, as people add to that, Fiona says somebody who doesn't do more than what is absolutely necessary. Yes, doing the minimum, perhaps. Oh, and Jane's arrived. Brilliant. So let's, as you're typing away, I'm going to try and share my screen and get my Prezi going as well. Let's see if we can do that. Okay, is this working? Okay. All right. So yes, so here are some ideas that I would suggest, as some of you come up with them, similar ones already. Um, Teachers who might be set in their ways, reluctant to develop, stuck in your comfort zone. They've seen it and done it all before, can't be bothered. And this sense perhaps of being a bit stale, jaded, set into a routine. Um, can everyone think of a colleague or someone you've worked with currently or in the past who might fall into this kind of description? You want to say perhaps you can think maybe a few, many, none? Yes, says Silvana. Oh, yes, says Kat. Um, okay, so it's something we've encountered before, perhaps. Do we think it's something which is related to age? I think there might be a perception that people link coasting to older teachers, but I would say maybe that's perhaps not strictly true, and it is, of course, a generalization. I think any teacher of any age can be coasting. Um, there was a very nice session from Tessa Woodward at the IHDOS conference a couple of years ago, which is now on YouTube, and I'll try and share the link to some of the things like this that I mentioned in the chat box. And her session was on professional life cycles of teacher, and she referenced Michael Huberman and his research into teacher career cycles. And part of this research sort of raised the issue that managers might well fall into the trap of typecasting their teachers. Quite a interesting thought there, and I'm sure we possibly, if we're honest with ourselves, might admit to having done that in the past. This suspicion that maybe we know which teachers are going to get stale. Um, so, what about the opposite of teaching? Can again, can people write a quick word or two in the chat box? What for you would be the opposite of a coasting teacher? Mm. So yes, Elena says creative, innovative, proactive. Well, you've got three key adjectives there, I think. Fiona, someone interested in CPD. Okay, so the opposite is, yeah, they're keen on professional development. A learner, yes. Thanks, Silvana. Open to new ideas, motivated. Thanks, Kat. Yeah, wanting to further their learning. Great, some good suggestions there. So I think we'd all agree that teachers who are engaged, they're connected to their profession, developing. They approach their work with a sense of inquiry, and the teachers who go the extra mile. So again, can you think of colleagues like this? Again, can you write a few? Yes, many, none? Hopefully not. Yep, sure, quite a few, definitely. Yeah, so I think we're familiar, aren't we, with this balance where you hopefully have a staff room full of positive, enthusiastic teachers, but of course, um, teachers who might be coasting as well. All right, so let's move on. Um, and if I pop myself back there, um, and I want to think about and briefly go over possible causes and think about the threats, and we'll come to that in a moment. And I mean there the threats to your school, your institution. Um, so, what could be the potential causes of coasting? Um, Here's one example, perhaps lack of experience. Shall we do a little bit more participation? Guys, do you want to make short suggestions? What do you think are the causes of um, coasting? Elena and Kat are sort of similar ones there. Yeah, burning out, full timetable. And I think we'll come on to that in my suggestions as well. Confidence, yeah. Thanks, Silvana. Bored, yes, Jane. Yeah, not sure where to go next. Great. So, well, here are some of my suggestions. Again, I think we're on the same wavelength here. Um, so a few lacks, yes, lack of experience, lack of confidence. Certainly, I can think of some great newer qualified teachers who get into a level, become, build their confidence within that level, and of course then are slightly fearful of moving out of that. And it is often to do with things like experience or confidence. Um, and recognition support. So again, this perhaps getting us to think about our role in in teachers coasting. Have we given recognition in the past when perhaps a teacher has gone out of their comfort zone and tried to do something new? What support do we offer? Is it enough? Um, and then we get on to these other areas. I'm sure we've all encountered teachers who have fallen into teaching. I can think of someone, myself, sitting here at this desk, who had some other vocational ambition, which wasn't teaching really, but teaching is something to do in the meantime while you're trying to achieve something else. Work-life balance. Um, Someone mentioned burnout in the chat box. Um, we might have that enthusiastic teacher or that teacher who will say yes to full and busy workloads, and we might slightly take that for granted or take our eye off the ball a little, and you know they can just start going through the motions because they literally can't cope with such a heavy workload. Um, there might be other things going on, of course, so things in the background which we're not necessarily aware of initially. Um, Personal issues, and of course there might be issues to do with the conditions in the school, some kind of resentment or dissatisfaction. Why should I bother? Um, if they're not listening to my needs, um, and of course overconfidence. I think we've again probably all seen teachers who think they've seen it and done it, and why should I be going to the TD sessions? So all of these are pointing to this need for managers to know their staff, get to know them, find opportunities to touch base, and we'll come on to that. And keep in mind this idea, which I mentioned just before, about typecasting. We might think it's teachers coasting, but perhaps something else might be going on. And we need to just be aware of what our bias might be leading us to believe, and it might be something else. So what about threats? Why is it a problem? And I put this question, I don't know if you all spotted it, I think some of you did, in a poll. Perhaps we can go back there. This question, if the coasting teacher is a popular teacher, if they're getting good student feedback, is it really a problem? So I wonder if, let's see if I can go back there. Whoa. Okay, so we've got this poll. Has everyone had a quick go at the poll? Can you see here, just in this bottom part of the middle of the screen? I've asked this question, and you can either answer yes or no. What do you think? Is it really a problem? Right. So there we go. Can everyone see the results? Do I need to end poll? Yes, you can see the results. I think they were there already. I'm not sure if they were supposed to be. But anyway, most of us, about 60% of us, believe it is a problem, with 30% thinking perhaps not. Okay, that's interesting. Um, all right, let me go back. Um, I think I think in my view there is a problem here. Um, I mean, mainly because um, we want to be. Sorry, I'm switching around. Why is it a problem? I think as managers, firstly, we need to be very consistent. We need to ask or set the same goals and ask to have the same expectations for all of our teachers. And of course, um, when we have positive teachers who, we ask something of them, we place our demands, and they're up for it. It's kind of not fair on them if we don't do the same of the one or two other teachers who are kind of ignoring everything. Um, and in this case, I ask this question because I think when you have a popular teacher and they're not, there's no issues really arising, it's kind of easy to turn a blind eye, perhaps let them off the hook. Um, but I think the problem here is it can potentially become a bigger one. So the threats to the LTO, the threats to your school, I think, well, firstly, you might get a negative impact on students. Um, Even if they are a popular teacher, you might from time to time get a student, and this happened not too long ago here. We had a student feedback comment where a student felt the teachers had been good, but she made this comment. She said they don't seem to have any methods. They just seem to be doing something. And it got me thinking. I said, I think you can sometimes as a teacher, particularly if you're popular and you can keep the students happy, just go through the motions and keep them happy, but perhaps without purpose, without looking for lessons which are relevant and meaningful to them. So I think this kind of thing, coasting teachers may well definitely have an impact on students, and of course then it gets noticed in the staff room, have an impact on colleagues. You get that sort of possible negative peer pressure. Um, you want the opposite. You want sort of positive people spreading good vibes. But if someone's kind of resistant or reluctant, it can perhaps have an impact on colleagues, and then ultimately it could have an impact on the school. Okay, so um, how do we manage all of this? Um, all right. Well, I think the first thing is to just have a little think about our own perspective here. Um, and I just wanted to mention the school where I work here, so St. Giles. So the perspective here and the goals of this school is that we want to set high standards. We want to deliver quality courses, of course. We want to drive continuous improvement. And I don't think these are particularly unique goals. I'm pretty sure that most other um, good institutions are driving for something similar. So what are we really asking? Um, I think really all we're asking is for the teachers on our team to meet the standards and expectations. And that's it. I don't think it's too much to ask. And I think this is something as managers we do need to initially confront. We're just asking teachers to meet the standards and the expectations. And I don't think anyone who joins the school has joined under false pretenses. That's what we're asking. So how do we convey this? And I think let me start with a few headline strategies, if you like. So the first one clearly is to do with communication. How consistently and how transparently do we convey our expectations, our vision? How do we put this across to teachers who are in the school and future teachers who may join us? And we need to do it at all stages, and we need to keep the message being repeated. So, for example, at recruitment, obviously we need it in our job descriptions, at interviews, um, in the contract, if we're induction, it should all be there. And then, of course, in our documentations, the teaching guides, the handbooks, and then in meetings, again, it needs to be a consistent theme, an undercurrent, something which is consistently repeated. And then when we have appraisals, one-to-one chats, um, again, it's focused on any newsletters we might send out, all of these kind of things. And I think some organizations do this well. I think possibly we could all do it better. Certainly, I think I could do it better. And then we need to lead by example. I think obviously if we're putting demands on our teachers, we need to put the same demands on ourselves. So you need to, I think, try to model the values of your school, model the vision. Tell your teachers what inspires you. Share your learning. Share what you're up to in terms of your own development. And this is a little controversial thought which did come up at a Londosa meeting. Someone said perhaps the cause of a coasting teacher is a coasting DOS. Please put your responses in the chat box to that. I think we do. We need to provide a bit of a push, and we need to show it as well. Show that we're doing it. Walk the talk, in other words. And then, of course, culture. We need to grow a culture and promote learning, promote collaboration, promote development. And this is, again, it's something which is quite difficult to capture immediately. It's something which is organic. It builds over time. And so your recruitment strategy becomes key here. You do need to look for teachers and recruit those teachers who are engaged and committed. Because you want, I mentioned it earlier, the staff room, you want a staff room which is very positive. The sort of power of the positive staff room cannot be denied, I think. And then you're looking at those who shine and who go the extra mile, and you really want to give recognition to them, give opportunities to them. And it's not just about, who's the next longest serving teacher in line for the promotion. It's about rewarding those who are engaged. All right, so we're going to come on to some other areas here. Let me just pop over to the chat box. Any comments or questions at this point? Oh, hello, there's a few new arrivals. Brilliant, great to see you. Okay. Okay, so I mentioned these as kind of headline strategies. Getting into the nitty-gritty, obviously this is about managing performance. And I've got here on this cycle of performance management, obviously appraisals will be part of this. So you have your annual appraisal and you've set out your standards, you've conveyed your expectations, and you can discuss performance and measure how your teacher is doing against those standards. Obviously this, if this is about underperformance, this webinar, the idea of coasting. So how do you address underperformance? Well, you then obviously need to identify and set goals. So what are the areas you want to improve, and then set some achievable goals which the teacher agrees on. It's something you can agree on together, but ultimately that's what you want to see happen. And then it's about monitoring. So monitoring might be through student feedback, it might be through observations. You might want the teacher to do some peer observations. So this kind of monitoring and giving that opportunity for the teacher to sort of make some steps forward. Then we might want to come back, because we don't want to just leave it for the whole year. So you want to discuss progress. So I think these regular kind of catch-up chats are always a good idea. So just what I do is just email a teacher and say, okay, let's meet next week, when's convenient, and you just sort of book these in your diary as you go through the year. And these catch-up chats obviously give you both a chance to catch up on this performance discussion, and get to know them further. So if there are, just in case there are issues in the background, you can explore that a little. And again, in these one-to-one chats, you can re-highlight expectations, give feedback on how you see the teachers progressing towards their goals. And if necessary, you could renew the goals or set new goals. And again, the cycle continues. So that sounds fairly straightforward, easy. But of course, it's not that easy. And we know that teachers do find this kind of thing perhaps difficult. And we had a great session recently at Londosa, which Maureen McGarvey delivered for us. And she was the title of her session was "Is Managing Teachers Different?" And she basically talked us through different organizations and organizational structures. And what we sort of came towards in terms of finding something which was perhaps closest to our field was Henry Mintzberg's professional organization, also called professional bureaucracy. And if you look into this, I think there's some nice parallels. He talks about the professional organization being quite complex, but having quite a big operational core. So in other words, the people who are dealing with delivering the service are the sort of biggest part of the organization. And here, of course, that's our teachers. And these professionals, they enjoy quite a large degree of autonomy, and I think that's true, isn't it? For teachers, we trust their professional judgment to quite a large degree. They go off and teach in classrooms and make a lot of decisions for themselves. So the point here that I'm making is that I think it's quite good to bear something like this in mind, because they're used to relying on their professional judgment. So it's quite difficult, I think, when you're going and having these chats with a teacher who might be coasting and their professional judgment is being questioned. And I think it can make this process a little bit harder. So tools for measuring performance. I got a couple of ideas which would be great if people could add to these suggestions. Now, of course, I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the British Council CPD framework. I had a look back at it just recently, and it seems to have grown and grown. It's got some fantastic resources, really targeting very specific areas. So that sort of area, that point where you're setting goals, I think, if you've identified a couple of areas for a teacher to work on and improve, there really is some good resources we can directly target them and provide something for them to go and look at and get ideas. Another one is the European profiling grid, which again has lots of competencies set out at different levels, perhaps in a bit more detail than the British Council. Lots of competencies at different levels of someone's career. So again, it might be a tool where you can use it as a reference point for a discussion with a teacher and say, well, look, where are you? Let's look at this together. Where are you in your career? Well, certainly, perhaps you might be an expert in language proficiency, and you've got certain teaching competencies. That's great. And you might then find other areas which, perhaps compared to their level of experience, they should be a bit higher. And so it allows you and them to maybe notice particular gaps, which, it's quite a good evaluation tool, obviously. So that's one idea. And another idea for using a tool to look at goals and look at measuring performance. Anything else? I mean, I think the other point here is to say it takes time. I mentioned already that people don't necessarily like their professional judgment being questioned. So this kind of thing will definitely take time. And of course, the other thing, which is always should be remembered when you're looking at change or trying to engineer change, is that you should expect resistance. So that's kind of something to definitely keep in mind. Okay, how are we doing? Whizzing through. Am I going too quickly? Back on the chat box. Um, love the idea of the EPG. Thanks, Kendra. I will definitely share the links at the end. How regularly do you catch up with teachers? So yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this is something which I used to work in a smaller school, and it could be a bit more frequent. But now I've got a much bigger team. But I'm trying to do it every 3 months, so sort of quarterly kind of catch up. Um, but it's again, that's something I need to keep on top of. Any other little pointers there? Okay, good pace. Thanks, Ivana. Um, Angela, yes, the EPG. Just to mention that's right, the European profiling grid. And thank you, someone's actually shared the link from an equals site. That's fantastic. Thanks, Eileen. It is a digital tool, so you can work on it online. Okay, let's pop back and carry on. Um, Another area, I mean, I think already, as already mentioned, I think we've touched on bits to do with motivation. Um, Came out a bit in the when we were looking at the causes of coasting. I remember someone said bored as a cause, and I think that that could be definitely an issue. Um, and the other point related to motivation is that if we're using, or if we're thinking about our organizational structure from Mintzberg's professional bureaucracy, again, we have this big operating core, our teachers. They are our assets, okay? And this is an aspect of this type of organization. We have, our main talent source is our people, the people who work for us. So it really is important that we keep motivation in mind, and we're creative to try and keep staff morale high. So let's have a look. I mean, I'm using Hertzberg's model for motivation just to get us thinking about it. And of course, he highlights the two distinct areas, so the hygiene factors, the things which can get in the way of people. They're not necessarily going to really push you on, but you got to deal with them. So I think hygiene factors in ELT are, well, yes, job security and conditions, um, admin, policies, and morale. So, what can we do here? How can we have an impact on this? Well, certainly we need to try and do as much as we can in our managerial roles to keep work conditions as good as we can. The tools, the facilities. Keep a tight ship if it's about that. If that's how your school is or your institution, keep people. Obviously, they need to feel secure. And then things like admin and different demands in terms of policies, try to respect that kind of professional in their classroom and keep admin. Obviously, we all need it. We know there are constraints. We know we need to get admin done. But as much as possible, try to keep them to a minimum, try to make them efficient and easily to carry out, and keep an eye on the morale in the team, because it's quite easy suddenly for something to happen and the morale can swing. And then the other thing that which Hertzberg outlined was, you deal with the hygiene factors and then really emphasize and enhance what he called the motivators. So here there's a few suggestions. So I think job variety and challenge. Well, I think, as you know, administrators who operate timetables, which perhaps some of us do, timetables are really nice and easy answer to job variety. So just watch for those teachers who just stick with a class and stick with a level for months and months and months and months. And it's good for them to change from time to time. But obviously, remembering things like experience and confidence and so on. But yeah, job variety, challenge. What kind of roles can you add and offer around the teaching job? I mean, taking on an exam class perhaps might be a challenge for someone, particularly if they haven't done it before. So offering variety and challenge, different kinds of responsibilities, a freedom to be creative. And I think we must, in many ways, offer this, in the classroom, be creative, if you have a system where your syllabus and curriculum is very set, what can you do to tweak it? What can you do to open up some room for a teacher to have some autonomy? So do keep that in mind. And recognition. So those teachers I mentioned before, the teachers who are really going the extra mile, who are positive, who are collaborators, um, give feedback, say thank you. It's easy to forget when you have regular meetings and there's stuff going on which you need to go through, but very important just to say thank you. Thank you for the hard work. Thank you for being brilliant. Um, Thank you for the creativity. So do offer positive feedback. Say thank you. Give praise when it's due, and recognition for those who go the extra mile, and opportunities for growth. Well, let's move, because I haven't talked yet about teacher development, and I don't know if many people were coming thinking, oh, this is going to be about teacher development. But of course, it's kind of a given. Growth can happen in many ways, but certainly within the TD program, if you have one, there are definitely opportunities there to grow. So a TD program is essential. I think it is a big area, and it's maybe something which I'd love to do in another session, perhaps in the future. But it's certainly essential. And I think what's been guiding my approach to teacher development in the last few years is research from Walter and Briggs from 2012. And they did a great sort of review of a load of studies and identified 6 or 7 here on the screen, 6 or 7 areas or aspects which you can really work best, they said, in terms of teacher development. So yeah, think about this. How much is your TD focused on the classroom and classroom practice? How much choice can you offer to teachers? So not only in the areas of focus, but in the type of development. So what and how? How much collaboration can you promote? And where can you bring in mentoring and coaching? So teachers working together really, really can drive a positive culture. How can you bring in outside expertise? Because I think it can be easy to sort of get quite focused on what's happening in your school, and you forget about the bigger picture and what's happening in the wider community. It does need to be sustained over time. So again, are you having just ad hoc sessions from time to time when you can set it up, or have you got something which is ongoing, and do you promote that? And this is key as well. It needs to be a program which the leadership of the school, so perhaps us and people above us, perhaps, they support it, they believe in it, and that is a key point as well. So I'm not going to say too much more about TD, but it is of course an essential element of revitalizing teachers. Something which I've been doing here at St. Giles, we get teachers into little groups, and they do sort of twice a month little sharing of ideas focused on a pathway. And it turns out that it's something which Jeff Petty has called supported experiments. And that's another link which I'll try and share in a moment. It's quite a nice model, and he's got a good website which covers all of that. So I'll try and share that as well. Okay. Let's just looking back at the chat box. Yes, Angela mentions the equals TD framework. Okay, that's I'm not sure. Yeah, this detailed set of can-dos. Okay, thank you. And there are possibly other ones which are above that. Okay, right. I'm going to come back. Am I? Right. I think I'm pretty much there. These are a range of ideas which I came up with. these sort of headline strategies in the at the top, and then these small sort of more day-to-day, week-to-week areas which you need to keep focusing on. And I think it's quite a lot there, but I think there are certainly some ideas to keep teachers on track, to try and encourage them and motivate them. Let's go to questions. Does anyone have any questions? We've perhaps got 5 minutes left. And I'm going to come back, I think, to the lounge over here. So, yeah, thank you very much. Any questions for me before we finish? How do you manage coaching trainers? That is, well, that actually is a good question, Silvana, because I think that, it comes back to this. I mean, I obviously not naming any names, etc., etc. But yeah, I can definitely think of colleagues in the past who have had really high level of experience and perhaps weren't really getting out there enough. I mean, I think it's back to performance management and asking sometimes those difficult questions. What are you doing to develop? What have you learned recently? How has that informed your practice? So this can happen, and those questions need to be asked as well of trainers. Any other questions? Oh, Alejandra just made it from Nicaragua. You might need to watch the recording. Thanks for coming, though. Right, that's true, Eiley. Yeah, I haven't really talked about paid, unpaid, mandatory, voluntary, and of course it is an issue. I've completely skirted that. I'm sorry about that. I mean, I think if it can be fitted into paid time on your schedule, that is ideal. If you can offer something which has an element of choice, and I mean, what we do here is that we expect our teachers to be involved and participate in our TD program. So we set it out as an expectation. So I suppose in a sense it is mandatory, but I think if we offer something relevant and meaningful, and we offer choice, and we're aiming things at different levels of experience, and it's an expectation, then I think that's fine, because I mean, I think if a very resentful teacher came and said, well, you're making me do this, I might say, well, okay, take 3 months, you go and do your own professional development, but I want very clear evidence of how you're doing that and what impact it's had on you. If you don't want to join ours. So I mean, that's I've not had to do that, but that's one possible thought.
Oh, Angela, is Andy coming in to say that?
No, it's okay. You can answer Angela's question.
It's difficult to determine around. Yeah, I think the culture takes
development being measurable. Yeah,
you're right. It's something which is organic, and it's about
what you can show.
And if you've got permanent teachers perhaps who aren't really buying into your vision, then that's difficult. But chatting to another DOS in London recently, actually, at quite a well-known school, she was telling me about this kind of issue, and they did go through disciplinary process, she said, with 1 or 2 teachers, because they just weren't buying into the vision. They weren't respecting, responding to the ideas to change and develop. So that's the last resort. But okay, Andy, I don't know whether we're nearly there. Oh, Angela, is Andy coming in to say me? I think I Really? No, I think that question about development being measurable, yeah, I have been asked that before, and again, I think
Okay, well,
it's sort of
I
about what you
know
can
Josh
show
has to get off to
and
go and
how you
sing the
can evidence that
Marseillaise
in
at Wembley, I
appraisals and
believe.
chats. Um, you know, can they,
um,
show you
where you get to sing the
how
Marseillaise, I
you've
believe,
had an
Josh.
impact?
That's the big thing tonight.
Um,
It's all about the
Certainly you want
Marseillaise.
them to be engaged, but it's about being something that's a little bit more explicit than that. But that's if you can show that in a meeting like an appraisal, and that might be through a portfolio. I mean, getting teachers to do portfolios, I've definitely tried that in the past with mixed success. But I think um, if teachers can show you new resources, new lesson plans, or perhaps they've filmed something, this kind of thing can be evidenced.
Yeah, thank you,
So
Josh.
yeah, it's a good
And
question.
like Josh said, thank
So
you
it's
to
only
all of
about
those who came
measuring, it's
here
about measuring.
and made it this afternoon, this evening, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are. And the recording will be available on our website, on the LAMSIG website, from tomorrow when I put it
Okay.
up there. And I'll leave the room open for the next few minutes if you would like to stay chatting with each other about these issues, if you'd like to use the chat box to do that. But I think
Going
we
to
need to
Wembley.
give Josh a chance to get away. So thanks again, Josh. It was great. It was really interesting, and I hope it's been useful for everyone.
Yeah, I'll be trying my best to get my French accent on. I mean, before we wrap up completely, I just want to say one more time, thank you very, very much indeed to everyone who has come and joined in and participated. Um, I hope some of the things that I've talked through has been of interest and value, and it's been a pleasure doing the webinar. So thank you very much. Mm. Great, thanks Angie, and thanks everyone again, and have a nice evening. I'm going to quickly share some links, and then I'm going to pop off. So all the best, and hope to see you and interact with you online perhaps again in the future. Okay. Okay. Okay.